Why do some of the smartest people completely lose access to their voice the moment the pressure rises? Not because they lack knowledge, not because they aren't capable, but because the body can silently interpret visibility, judgment, and self-expression as danger. Once that happens, intelligence stops translating into communication. In this episode, we explore why the nervous system regulation may matter more than confidence, how storytelling changes the way people trust you, and why finding your authentic voice might actually be the key to building freedom in your life and work. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life health, transformational coaches, and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, a coach's alchemist, on a mission to empower coaches and entrepreneurs to amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head on over to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Alice Lydkova. Alice is the creator behind Alice Lydkova and the Alice Method, where she explores nervous system regulation, authentic communication, storytelling, and self-expression. Through her writing and videos, she helps people communicate with greater clarity, presence, and personal authority in both life and business. Welcome to the show, Alice. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Jill. Hi.
So let's ask you the big question. What's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
That's a great question. I always say that the biggest impact is really to speak your truth. I know it's very cliche, and a lot of people we all know that it's something that's obvious, right? We should, of course, speak our truth. And it's not always the case because there's parts of the world where you cannot use your voice. And there are parts of the world where you can. We have those freedoms. And I always am a big advocate of exercising our freedom. So if we have the capability to speak, to express ourselves, then we should absolutely empower ourselves to do so, especially if we're in the countries that empower us to do that. Oftentimes, what prevents us from using our voice is our own imposter syndrome, or our mind is in the way, our trauma is in the way, our upbringing, our culture, our nervous system that isn't regulated. So all of a sudden we use that capability, and if we don't practice, we never have that chance again. So everything comes from being more of who you are, of course, understanding who your audience is, and that takes practice of being vulnerable. And there's a lot of things we'll cover, storytelling and nervous system regulation and being vulnerable with ourselves and honest first with ourselves before we can speak the truth. Great question.
How how do highly intelligent people often become less articulate in high pressure situations? What kind of leads to that, do you think?
I had this discussion with a lot of highly intelligent people, and I wish I could reference the study, but there was a study that I read that the more intelligent you are, the more unsure you are of your capability, of your own intelligence. And I see that in my family that we have a few engineers and doctors and writers, so you would call them intelligent. And they're some of the most humble people. Like they don't think they're that smart. So, and intelligence doesn't mean that a mark of intelligence is more than just being smart or educated and academic. There's a lot that goes into intelligence. I think at the end of the day, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know. And I think that's why intelligent people say that they're not that smart or intelligent because they know more and they understand that they actually don't know so much about the universe and about the multiverse and multiple galaxies. So it's just awareness.
Yeah, I that is so true. And let's talk about words for just a second. This is kind of going to be a segue off of it. Um, I've always understood that words, the larger your vocabulary is, and it just kills me when you have to dumb down your writing. for like they talk about third grade level. That's so sad because
Mhm.
bigger ideas require a bigger vocabulary because words have meaning and specific words have specific meaning. And you can't grow an idea unless you grow your vocabulary to fit around it. What are your
Absolutely. So New York Times had the criteria, I believe, is fifth grade.
Mhm,
And if I'm not sure if they changed it to third grade, and I understand what you're saying.
mhm,
I so yeah, so we do have the vocabulary word. That's one form of expression is the written word and the spoken word. There's also, you can express yourself through music, by playing an instrument and dancing. And there's many ways to express ourselves, and that expression holds a frequency. It's an energetic blueprint of your soul. Music, writing, I'm a writer, so like through words, through speech, through the written form of expression, you channel the spirit. It's your spirit, it's your soul, and it's your blueprint. And I always talk about this, why it's important in business and in life, because your business is your life and your life is your business. You don't become a different person at work, and you don't become a different person when you come home. You are the same person. It's just you have one mask that you take off and you replace it with another mask. It's like changing hats. So I always say that the more you can sit in your truth and be aware of who your audience is. So if you have, for your example of the third grade, if your audience is used to understanding third grade uh, vocabulary, absolutely you should um, adapt to their communication style. But I always try to go a little bit, give them something that they're not expecting. So you can throw in fourth or fifth grade. You can throw a curveball in because it expands their mindset. You always want to expand and broader people's mindset because you don't, if you're in third grade, you don't know you need fifth grade. You don't know what your fifth grade is like. You know, Jill, because you can go from fifth to fourth to third to eighth. So, as educators, our responsibility is really to enhance, empower, broaden people's lives, enhance their life. So we can absolutely aim to throw a few words in there that are fifth grade or eighth grade, you know?
love that. I think it's more about developing ideas with people and it in terms of speaking
Mhm.
rather than writing. I understand the third grade thing with writing online has to do with people skimming because we don't have
Yeah.
time to read all of the stuff that it gets thrown at us. And so unless you're writing for the purpose of sharing an idea, and it
Yes.
gets into like there's vernacular that people use in different professions. Like you
Hmm.
talked about, you have engineers and doctors and other highly intelligent people, and but they all have a specific vocabularies that they use. And
Yes.
and sometimes that doesn't work for everybody's benefit because everybody doesn't understand what they're talking about.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting. Yes, so they have a different vocabulary, and I have a podcast where my co-host is a doctor and he's very spiritual. So he is somewhere else. He's
Mhm.
way beyond even my comprehension and vocabulary and understanding. However, there's people like you and I that can translate and suit and translate those ideas to different audiences, which is a blessing. And in my family, we also have people who speak multiple languages. And
Mhm.
that's another, that's just the way that they can process ideas is amazing that today computers can do. I would, when it comes to ideas, I I struggle with this in the sense of eh, ideas don't always require a vocabulary. It,
Mhm.
ideas can require energy, and ideas can be expressed through energy. it, so practically how that looks like is if I am in a hostile country in the Middle East, I was in Iraq during the Arab Spring in 2012, and there's soldiers on the ground and there's people that want to attack me or kidnap me. And in my mind, I don't speak Arabic, and in my mind, I'm thinking about survival. So how do I survive in a hostile environment where they don't speak my language and I'm outnumbered by a lot of men? I put into my consciousness the idea of survival, and then I use extreme forms of feminine power, like to calm down the situation, which isn't spoken, it's just energy, so that I can influence their behavior and break down their perception or their idea of trying to attack me. Now, you can call this, think of it like an intelligent officer that is highly trained at doing this. So this just comes naturally. So it's like channeling coaching or telepathy or stuff like you can influence ideas with just your energy. And there's so much of all of us can do that. It's just bringing about that awareness that we human beings have those skills. Women tend to have more of those intuitive abilities, but you can move mountains and influence the decisions of policymakers with just those actions. And that's at another level of communication.
There's a group, I can't remember her name who started it, but it was Intentions. They were Intentions with the Power of Seven. And do you remember who she is? I
No,
would
but
like to give her credit for her groups that, and I was part of them during COVID. I had a group that we all met together, and the way it works is that you set intentions as a group, and it's all energy work, and you
yes.
push it out, and
Mhm.
things do happen. My personal experience was I'd hit my thumb with a pneumatic nail gun. Like the nail went in and hit the bone, and it hurt so bad, let me tell you. And I
Yeah.
had the group get together and hold the intention that the pain was gone and it was totally fine. And after 20 minutes of us holding this intention, it was totally gone. I was like, I could bend my thumb. It's like nothing had ever happened to me. So, and that's just one of a lot of different experiences that we had as a group, but
The
energy
Romans,
work.
the Romans did this before every single battle. The Romans were setting those intentions. it it influences our reality in ways that we still don't understand in the West. I mean, yes, if you look at like tantric arts, I did tantra massages where you transfer energy between bodies. And I
Mhm.
never even told you this, so this is the curveball I'm throwing on your podcast.
That's
But
great.
you can definitely feel that energy. You can feel the illness in the person's body and then this is something that if you're not trained, you could really hurt yourself. Reiki or Tantra, you can take the illness away from the person, and then you're supposed to cleanse your body and get rid of it. But if you don't know how to get rid of it, with one client, I had a 24-hour energetic hangover, like as if I drank a bottle of wine, and
Mhm.
my body was spinning like a coil. And I was shut down, like my nervous system was shut down, and that was for 24 hours. So there's a lot of things we can do with energy, and that translates to how we speak, what we think about, how we express ourselves. People read your communication style before you open your mouth. So communication, 70% of communication actually is nonverbal.
And how do you feel about when you're presenting to an audience specifically? How does that translate into helping an audience remember your message?
Oh, that's a great question. So I've developed the Alice method for solving a specific problem that I saw in my students and clients, and that is freezing in meetings, freezing on stage. When I say freezing, that means shutting down. Your body shuts down, your thoughts shut down, your speech shuts down. So you freeze. It's the fight or flight. And
Mhm.
that nervous system overrides any form of memorization that you do or preparation. So I started teaching nervous system regulation, which comes from my yoga practice, and incorporating it into communication training because I said I can't teach communication without the nervous system regulating because then they shut down, right? My students. So working with over like 100 students by now, I realized that the first step is regulating the nervous system, then finding a way to structure the presentation because when we're translating from another language, a lot of my students are international, we lose the messaging. So if we can come up with a simple structure to follow, which is, the hook, the name and your role, then what you will talk about, the time expectation, and I always say three topics or a topic and three subcategories because if you send your husband to the grocery store, my brother, and you ask him to get 10 things, he'll only get three. And that's how that idea of three came about. We will always remember 3 points, even if we're nervous. And then if you got the nervous system and you got clarity and structure, then you can go another level and be creative in your storytelling and how you engage the audience. But you can't engage the audience if you've shut down. So I try to take care of that um, calibration phase, how to calibrate ourselves and prepare for that moment. And then we can speak our truth. Then it's much easier to use our voice because we've taken care of everything else.
So, do you have a couple tips for getting ready to go on stage or to
Yeah.
go on a podcast? I mean, things that a couple things that people can do to just prepare for it.
Yeah, so what we'll actually do one exercise together for the nervous system. So this is a breathing exercise, and we'll do it
Mhm,
together on this podcast so people can see. And this I've used when I came back from Iraq and I had PTSD, so I couldn't sleep for a few years. And then
mhm.
I learned this in my Buddhism training that a simple breathing exercise allowed me to sleep for 8 hours, which is great value for all of you watching this podcast because we all struggle with sleep. So the
Mhm.
first step is we're either standing or sitting, and we're going to inhale through the nose for 3 counts. Then we're going to hold our breath for 5 counts, and then we'll exhale through the nose for 7 counts. And normally we repeat it 5 times, but we'll just do it 3 times. So let's start. So inhale through the nose for 3 counts. Hold for 5 counts. Exhale slowly for 7. One more inhale for 3. Hold for 5. Exhale for 7 counts. We'll do one more. Inhale for 3. Hold for 5. Exhale for 7. And we can do as many times. What it does is it grounds you. How do you feel just doing 3 times?
I love these breathing exercises. I feel in control. And for full disclosure, every night before I go to sleep, I do box breathing. And I
Oh,
do
cool.
sleep for like 8 hours. And, at
So
this point in my
important.
life, most people do not sleep all the way through the night. They don't sleep for
Mhm.
8 hours at a time. And I have been doing this for several years now, and I don't wake up in the middle of the night. I just sleep until my body is
Absolutely.
done. It's
And they don't teach this in medical school, so I have surgeons practicing this. And how this applies to when you're presenting on stage or about to take the mic and even going to the meeting. is that you start practicing this breathing as you're sitting, waiting to be called on stage, or when you're waiting to go into the meeting. So you already start. So by the time you open the door or grab the mic, then you've already taken care of your nervous system. So and sometimes I present my books on stage. So I take the mic and I purposely like adjust the mic so it gives me a few more seconds to practice breathing. That's a little hack. And then, because my throat used to, I would lose my voice. It was a big
Mhm.
problem that I had for years. And I stopped doing that. So that is a practical skill to have. It doesn't take up a lot of time. And then for any podcast or presentation, then we have like a readiness guide that I know, Jill, you'll be sharing. And
Mhm.
that's a checklist and a diagnostic tool that you can use that identifies how ready you are. And that comes into the clarity of structure. And after you've regulated your nervous system, then you go into that tool. And you always want to share a story to relate to the audience. I like to use illustrations or metaphors. For example, if I'm introducing myself as a communication trainer, I say that I come from a family of ADHD. All four of us did not communicate well. We all threw tantrums, and this is why I have made it my life mission to help you avoid that pain of family dysfunction because of lack of communication. So communication is everything. It helps all areas of life.
And as you become a better communicator, it helps your children become better communicators and it cuts down on the tantrums that they have.
Yes, because we weren't, none of us were diagnosed until I was diagnosed at 39. My brother, we suspected he had it. My mom, she was diagnosed last year at 67. It takes a
It's
while.
interesting how they come up with these labels for things. I think that I don't know, just my personal opinion that people who are ADHD are just like they're thinkers and doers and they want to be able to have a path and focus on that path and get down it and instead of like it's easy for all of the other stuff to come in and distract us, but people with ADHD tend to be able to like, okay, I'm doing it.
Absolutely. But ADHD is a lot more complex, just having studied a lot. There's a
Mhm.
Huberman's lab out of Stanford. He talks a lot Andrew Huberman about ADHD. It is a brain structure difference, a
Uh-huh.
chemical difference, and then it's tied to a lot of other stuff like eating disorders and bipolar and borderline personality disorders, OCD. So there's a lot from ADHD that happens, and I think that if you are aware of ADHD, then you can understand how to adjust your communication style. For example, I'm impulsive and I tend to interrupt people, but I didn't know why I was doing that and how to solve that problem. So I'm aware of it because I have ADHD, and how to solve it is meditation and breath work. So all of the awareness allows us to seek out the tools and the answers to our problems, the solutions that then we can teach. If we applied it to ourselves, then we can teach it.
I
So
love
there's,
that. It sounds a lot like also some of the labels that in the spiritual community we use, like the enneagrams and the Myers-Briggs and
yes,
some of these other, even astrology and numerology, some of those tools that people in the spiritual community use help you identify who you are at the core versus and it allows you to be able to move forward
yes,
in your business and your life and in your communication with others if you know who you are fundamentally rather than just like it's it was for a long time people were pushed into a box and told
yes,
who they were going to be and it didn't feel good and you felt
yes,
you either felt like you were being pushed into a position where you had to speak and you couldn't speak authentically because that didn't meet the framework of the expectations of those around you, that you gave power to their opinions, or you would talk and you couldn't connect with the audience because you couldn't connect to yourself.
Exactly. I get a lot of executives who
Mhm,
have to perform but doesn't feel right
mhm,
in with their leadership style. So I always illustrate it like this. It goes to learning intention. You have when you are performing and from who you are, and then when you're also taking information from the audience and trying to fit into their picture. I say that it's like you're being a director of your film and you're being a director of their film. But you're trying to direct both films at the same time, and this is why you fail. So you have to make a decision that am I here to direct my movie or am I going to direct your movie, Jill? And that's an intention you do before the meeting. So if I'm here to show up as Alice and this is what I think, I'm going to be forthright in that, no matter the consequence. And that's scary because when I spoke to a prime minister in Iraq, I showed up as Alice and well, I could let's just say I could have gotten arrested because I heard about it from my friend who worked for the Minister of Justice, and he said, you don't do that in these meetings. So I was directing my film. There's some consequences there, but you have to really, that's the truth, and your truth impacts that decision, and you don't know how it's going to impact the outcome. And then you have you're directing somebody else's film, and it's almost like you're going on stage and you just say, "Hi, I'm Alice, and like this is what I'll talk about for 3 minutes, and I'm here to take all your questions." And you're responding to questions from the audience. You're serving the audience. You're in their film. And people try to do both at the same time, and so they're thinking while they're also trying to speak. It doesn't work. So you can go from one movie to the next, you can flow, you can go one and there and back and forth, but not at the same time. And that's a metaphor that helps people understand why they freeze in their thinking, their thoughts, and then they can't speak the thought that came here because they have the thought and then the thought and then the thought and then they're trying to translate it with speech and they can't. Plus the nervous system takes over.
That makes total sense. I'm sitting here thinking about, I do these monetize your mission masterminds on Thursdays, and I almost always have an outline of what I want to talk about, but I
Uh-huh.
leave it open to people being able to come in and go out and ask me questions. But the reason I think that that can work for me is because I have a lot of information and I'm really comfortable with the subject that we talk about,
Hmm.
or I bring somebody else in and let them have direct their show, and then I do the interaction with the audience. So I can totally see this has been super helpful about
Yeah,
how the different movie production pieces fit together.
absolutely. And another way to say that metaphor is that you have your foot in one door and out the other, or how do we say it? Your, you haven't walked through
Straddling the
this.
threshold.
Exactly. Yeah, there we go. So you have to make that decision and keep 2 feet in this room and then 2 feet in the other room. Because when you're in between, that's where the topic gets lost in translation, the message gets lost. And then you feel bad about it. And then you don't know how to recover that message, and you may not be able to recover that message.
I think it only works to be able to have a situation like that if you really know the subject, or if you've separated the subject training from the question answer, sort of. You put yourself in the audience position and let the speaker run their show, but you're translating for the audience. Or if you're going to have a presentation and questions and answers, it only works if you really understand how to keep the audience like lasered in on not dragging you off topic, because
Correct.
that's
So
really easy to do,
you can
to get dragged
absolutely,
off.
absolutely, you can. That's a great synthesis there. You can do that, Jill. Another way to look at it is from the perspective of control. So like when we're presenting, we know the topic, so we're in control of the topic. What happens is that we're in control until we're not. So we're in
Yep.
control, and then we lose the control, and then we try to regain the control. So that's another example of like we're directing two movies at the same time. So what you have to really do is either be in control as long as you can, right? Because you're delivering that message. But if you are losing control, like lose it. That requires you to be vulnerable. And and a vice president may not be comfortable with that, but vulnerability gets really good results and outcomes because that is when that mask fell, it's you are true. It's your truth. And then you will get people connecting to that or not. So if um, let's talk about a job interview. So practically, I was interviewing for a job in Miami, and I knew what I was going to say. And this was in front of a billion. This was a billionaire CEO. He was a billionaire. His wife was a billionaire. And then it was a high stakes moment. I was going to be the executive assistant and the personal assistant. And I knew exactly what I was going to say. I'm in control. I've prepared. My nervous system was great. You know, I went running by the beach, except I showed up and in 30 seconds they disarmed me. Like I was going for the Olympics and I thought I was ready. Let's put it that way. So in that moment, I failed the interview and they said, come back the next day for another chance because we like you, but we can't hire you like that. And they told me that obviously I couldn't present, I couldn't communicate, all of that. So I made that conscious decision before stepping into the room that I'm in their movie. I got nothing, which meant when I walked in, I said, I have nothing for you guys. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. You have you're calling the shots, and I'm here to learn, and I'm a sponge. That was my pitch. I had nothing. And I got hired. I asked them, why did you hire me? And they said, because you have humility. So when you give up the control, you get something better. It's called humility and vulnerability. That gets you further, actually. The one practical example.
It's so empowering too, because then you're not in the position where you have to tell people who obviously know way more than you do what their business is. I'd like to work for you. Tell me what you'd like me to do. This is my skill set, but how can it fit into your plan?
And if you go on stage, or let's say you have to direct a panel discussion or a meeting, in this case, in the boardroom, or it could be a team meeting, we often feel like we have to have the answers and we have to speak. You can just show up at on stage or in the meeting and say, I'm here for you guys. I'm here to learn from you. And I'll ask the first question, but then I open the floor for the discussion. So we're just having a discussion. And that puts pressure off of you as needing of being the person in charge. I've done that many times on stage. I'll present 5 minutes, the rest for the next 55 minutes. I'll take questions from the audience. That's it. No presentation. You don't get anything, guys. I want to hear from you. That's also powerful.
A whole community grows from something like that, though, because you never know what's going to come up, and you can learn so much, but everybody learns. It's not just you. It's the whole group. I love those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
So tell us about your community over on school, that Alice community.
Yeah, so Alice method on school is communication training. to allow you to stop freezing, to get you the transformation that you're looking for, and then the confidence and the authority that you desire. So mainly it's for international professionals, engineers, project managers, VPs that are freezing on stage or at meetings, on podcasts. It's actually grown into other people that have different professions because I found out that we all freeze. And the value of the community is in the Q&A and daily accountability. So you ask each other questions every day, and you'll find out that the questions, we all have the same questions and the same problems. And then I teach the Alice method in a course called Stop Freezing in meetings. And the course is designed for you to understand what Alice method stands for. I'll give you a little sneak peek. A starts with active listening. And for those of you that don't know what active listening is, it's not some summary of, or it it's not paraphrasing. Let's put it this way, because that's what everybody says. Active listening is paraphrasing. It's repeating word for word what the person has said. So let's do a little role play here. Jill, say something. Any question or any comment? Say anything.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. I didn't prepare for this test.
Okay, pause. What I heard you say is that you didn't prepare for the test. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's it. That's the role play. It's repeating their words so you can check, so they can check, you can check your communication, and I understood your communication. So it's not paraphrasing. And that's a powerful skill. And then so at Microsoft, we had an engineer that kept messing up on the codes. And I asked him, did you repeat word for word what your boss had said before you started the assignment? And he didn't. So when he started doing that, he made fewer mistakes. And then he spent fewer hours working. And I think all of us want to work less, no?
It's also a great tip for making sales. When you
Yes.
repeat back to your client their exact words and use their
Mhm.
name, they're they're more likely to understand that you understand what their problems are.
And they trust you more. And
Because
that's the biggest, one of the biggest component of sales. And you said you're a mom. So same thing with kids. If you, what I heard you say, you wanted a cookie and a tea. No, I wanted the cookie and a Coca-Cola instead, so then you don't get as frustrated because you're repeating their words.
yeah,
It's helpful. And then your nervous system feels better. So everything is, it's all interconnected. You can't you can't be a better communicator if you don't incorporate the storytelling, the nervous system, the active listening, setting intentions. That's I in the Alice method. And if you follow A through C, the logic is that you get E, and that is embodiment. And what embodiment is, your authentic self. It's your embodied authority in the practical sense at work. Embodiment is what you think inside is the same as what you're communicating or what you're projecting. So it's your internal world is the same as your external world. And then you're embodied, you're integrated.
and I feel that when you're expressing yourself in that way, using the Alice method, you're you're impacting others positively also. I when you were talking about, you know, this in terms of parenting, that it when you deal with your children and you communicate effectively with them, it empowers them to be able to communicate effectively with you and with others, and it builds confidence in them. You know, we
That's the confidence. Like people ask, how do I get more confident? Confidence is the outcome of embodiment.
Mhm.
Confidence is the outcome of practice. Confidence is the outcome of following a holistic system. Alice Meth is really about a holistic way of communicating and living at the end. And then you have confidence because you feel who you are, not just what you're memorizing to be, or to your point earlier, fitting into somebody else's script or the movie.
Yeah.
It's your movie, and then you're collaborating with another filmmaker.
And the world needs that. The world needs to see your movies.
Yeah, and that's storytelling because we remember stories. We remember because they make us feel a certain way.
Mhm.
People don't remember what you say, they remember how you
How
made
you
them
make them
feel.
feel.
And how you feel something real is by sharing your story because that is real to you. And that's what people remember,
So
your story.
true. How can people reach out to you?
School.com/Alice and then alicelydkova.substack.com.
And they can find the Stop Freezing in Meetings course in
Yes,
the classroom in your school community, correct?
correct. Yeah, in the Alice method. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Alice. This has been so fascinating.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you for having me.
You can learn more about Alice and find those fantastic resources over in her school community, school.com/Alice. And please consider subscribing to her Substack publication, alicelydkova.substack.com. And I'll be sure and put those links in the show notes below. Thank you for joining us today. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and start attracting premium clients, your next step is simple. Head to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.